Welcome back, everyone. This is my 1 year review on the Magnum X5 True Airless Graco paint sprayer. This was one of my more popular videos, so I thought I'd share with you my experience of this paint sprayer after having it for 1 year. All right, so a couple of positives and negatives to share with you. The positives are that this paint sprayer does a really good job with large surface areas. If you have a lot to paint, it does a really good job. If you're doing smaller projects like cabinets or bookshelves or something that's really small that you're not going to be buying a lot of paint for, this is probably not the paint sprayer I would be using. I've used it for cabinetry, I've used it for small little woodworking projects. The problem that you run into is that in order to use the machine, you have to have a bucket of water to run through the machine. To even get the machine going, you use water. The problem with that is that when you move from the water to the paint, it starts to water down, well, it can water down the paint at the very beginning of the spray. That can cause all sorts of problems. If you don't spray all of the water out completely before you start painting your project. So you're going to be spraying out all the water, then once you see the paint mixing with the water, you got to spray all of the paint and water mixture out, and then you're going to spray your project with pure paint. So what this does is it wastes a lot of paint. So if you're not using a 5-gallon bucket of paint, it can be pretty wasteful with small projects. Now, there are some things you can do to make sure the water doesn't come out of the spray gun. Like I said, in the previous video, I showed you how to use the machine. With the lever in this position, the water or paint will be coming in this inlet valve and out this tube. And this is your waste tube or your waistline. With this down, you're in the spray mode. So anything that your inlet is in, whether it's in the bucket of paint or a bucket of water, that's going to be sucking in through the machine and it's going to be sprayed out your paint sprayer. So if you have this in the water at that point, more water will be coming through this line, filling up your entire hose. And my hose is really long, and that's what came with this machine. A lot of water can get into your line. So in the instructions, it does say to put your inlet hose in the paint before you put this down into spray mode. However, I have found that water still does get into the line or is still in the line from when you cleaned out your line on the previous spray. So you still have to make sure all of the paint is out of the line, or all of the water is out of the line before you continue spraying on your project. So that can cause some waste with the paint. The other thing is the tip choices. So I've used the 515 tip for most big projects like walls, ceilings. If you have a giant bookcase or something, you can use that. And I mean, maybe you wouldn't even want to use that for a giant bookcase. For walls and ceilings, you'd want to use 515. I use tip 311 for small projects like bookshelves or cabinetry. Essentially, it gives you a smaller spray area and it doesn't put as much paint out onto the surface at once. So it's a much finer spray than the 515. So you're gonna wanna make sure you get the right tip. However, I've already found a problem with Graco's chart, and I'll put that up here. They have 311 under the stains and sealers only section. However, on the Graco's website, they also have a video showing you how to spray cabinets, and they suggest using the 311. The only problem that I have is with their chart. I didn't like that their chart was wrong in that sense, but after doing more research on their website, I found that they do have a video showing you how to spray cabinets, and they do suggest using the 311, even though it's not on their chart to use the 311 for paint. It says it's suggested for stains and sealers. Here's that chart for your reference. Feel free to pause the video if you want to take a look. It does take a second to get the paint sprayer going, so and then it does take a while to clean up. So the negatives are, it uses a lot of paint just to get started. If you don't get all the water out, you can get poor results that can cause your paint to separate on your project. Make sure you spray all the water out before you start spraying on your project. And like I said, that can waste a lot of paint. And then clean up. Cleanup does take a while. You got to run water through the machine. And I keep saying water, but if you're using oil-based paints, you're going to use mineral spirits. I use latex water-based paint, so I use water to run through the machine. So if you're using oil-based paints, yeah, anytime I said water, you're gonna use mineral spirits. But yeah, otherwise this has been a pretty good machine. I think going forward on small projects, I'm going to get either a HVLP sprayer, the ones that just have a little tank on top of the spray gun. That seems like a lot less cleanup. There's not going to be any water in the system, so I'm not going to have to spray or waste paint, spray the water out or waste paint. But yeah, it's been a decent sprayer for big projects for sure, but I would go with a different sprayer if I was going to do small projects or even cabinetry or something. But if you are going to use this for cabinetry, I've had good luck with the tip 311. But yeah, if you're going to be using just a gallon of paint, this is probably not the paint sprayer to use. I would use this if you're going to use 5 gallons to paint a whole room, or maybe a giant project they have. This would be a great paint sprayer for that. So these are the kind of results you can expect with the 311 tip and the Graco X5 Magnum paint sprayer. As you can see, it's very, very fine, very, very nice. Nice coverage, and this was just one final coat after primer. Like I said, with the 515 tip that I have used in the past, I've got pretty bad results with cabinets. They did not look this nice. A lot more orange peel looking texture, a lot more drips to deal with. But yeah, so I've been using this 311 tip instead of this 1515 tip for small projects. So okay, so when I start painting, this is my setup. I have my waste bucket, but it also is my water bucket. You can have a waste bucket and a water bucket, but I just do it this way. It means that I only have to carry one bucket. If you did it with 2 buckets, you would have 1 bucket full of water, and then you'd have your waistline. You'd have your waistline popped off this, and it would be going into another bucket. So it would be going into another bucket. This is how I do it though. So I'm going to show you how to not lose as much paint or waste as much paint as you might normally would. So there is a way to save your paint. Okay, so I get done spraying. This would be in my can of paint. So would this actually be in my can of paint. and I would take it out and kind of set it up maybe like this. So it's not actually in my water, but the paint's not dripping all over the floor. Then I would take my waistline and I would put it in my paint bucket. I would have it in this position in the prime mode. This is spray mode and this is prime. And prime just means that the machine's gonna suck all the paint out and put it through this waistline, and since you want to keep the paint, it's going to go back into your bucket. So that way you're not wasting as much paint, because if you have it in the waste bucket, it's going to go take all the paint out of your machine and it's going to dump it in your waste bucket where all your water is, and you're going to have unusable, runny, watery paint that you're going to have to take all of your paint that's in this waste bucket and you're going to discard it. Another way you can save paint in this line is when you have it on spray, you take your sprayer and you would actually have a tip on this, and you would change the tip to an unclog position, take it and put it in your paint, and you would spray extra paint into your paint can until all the paint is out of the system. But you're gonna do that with this inlet tube out of your paint and out of your water. So the only thing that this is sucking in is air. You do not want it sucking more paint into your system, and you do not want it sucking in water. So hopefully these tips help you not waste as much paint in the future. That way you can get all the paint out of your machine. And then of course you're going to do all the steps to clean your machine with water or mineral. Okay, so what do these numbers mean? Like I said before, I used this chart and it kind of led me astray to what I was trying to accomplish. But then Graco does have a video that kind of answered my question, but it also kind of pointed a hole in this chart. So instead of looking at this chart and thinking, oh, this is the chart and it knows all, I kind of wanted to explain exactly what this chart means. So this is straight from the Graco website. The first digit of the number on the tip is half of the fan. The last two digits are the size of the tip opening in thousandths of an inch. So 17 in 517 means the tip hole size is 0.017 inch. So basically what this means is that if you're working on a small project, the beginning number needs to be lower and a large project needs to be higher. This is because if the number in the front is 5, that means it's going to spray 5 inches on the left and 5 inches on the right. So a spray pattern will be 10 inches wide if you are 12 inches away from your surface. So with small projects, you're going to want a smaller fan, and for larger ones, you're going to want a larger fan. As for the last two digits, you're going to want a lower number if you're spraying thinner material and a higher number if it's thicker. So for example, stains and sealers, you're going to want a lower number. For thicker paints like oil paints or exterior paint, you're going to want a higher number. Now, if you remember, Graco recommended using 311, and 11 is a lower number used for thinner paints or stains or sealers. They're considering latex interior paint as a thin paint. So that's why they said to use 311. Even though it doesn't reflect that on their chart, they still do recommend you use that for thinner latex paints. All right, thanks for stopping by. That's all for this video. If you have any questions, please comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, then just leave. Don't write anything and don't give me a thumbs down. But yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask and I'll get back to you. But thanks for watching.